Okay, so welcome back, and today we're going to start talking about linear equations and solving them. So to start with, let's introduce some concepts and some ideas that go into solving linear equations. First of all, a linear equation is just the equation that represents a straight line. Okay, so in this here we have one linear equation. It's a simple one. Now, we call these an equation in one variable because there's only one variable represented in the equation, okay? So, to solve for this, what we're going to do is we're going to isolate the variable on one side of the equal sign, and we want to get everything else on the other side of the equal sign. So we have to have things on opposite sides of the equal sign. And so, when we isolate the x variable, what we want is we want two things. We want x on one side. We also want the coefficient of the variable to be positive 1. Okay? So in this case, if I solve this and I get x equal to 1, then this is what we call the solution or the root of the equation. Okay? Notice x has this coefficient of 1. Remember, there's always an assumed 1 here. Okay, if you don't see a coefficient, it's always assumed to be 1. So we want to have positive 1 here. And so then we're done because we've solved the equation. Okay, so when we isolate the variable on one side and we get a constant or some other expression on the other side, then we've solved the equation for that variable. Okay? And again, we're only dealing with linear equations with one variable, or in one variable. So how does this work? Well, one of the guiding principles or basic principles that makes this work is the basic principle of equality. And the basic principle of equality says that whatever operation you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side of the equation as well in order to preserve the equality. Okay, so think of it like a balancing beam, right? If you've got the balancing beam, or a scale, seesaw, teeter-totter, whatever you want to use, if you've got it perfectly balanced, then it's straight across. But if you put too much weight on one side, it starts to tip, and so we don't want that to happen when we do this. So in order to keep things balanced, we want to be able to have the same amount added or subtracted or multiplied or divided on either side. So whatever operation you do to one side, make sure you do it to the other side so it keeps it balanced. Okay? Now, one of the important axioms that comes from this idea of the principle of equality is the addition axiom. So the addition axiom just says, look, if I add the same thing to both sides of an equation, it preserves equality. Okay? So again, that's just more coming from this basic principle of equality. This is something that we take as a fundamental fact, as an axiom. Okay, so for example, in general, if I have A equals, if I have A equals B, right, so A and B are any number, right, and if I know A is equal to B, then what this addition axiom is saying is if I add C to both sides, then it's still equal, okay? And that's how the addition axiom works. Let's see here. Okay, so next we'll go into how to solve, the steps to solving a linear equation, and then we'll do some examples. See you then.